Good afternoon, everyone. I am Falguni, and you are watching Candidate Ciceroni Live, a weekly talk show wherein we bring about different fashion personalities and talk to them about the issues that are plaguing the industry and bring out the talent that is there. India is a rich country, so to say, in terms of textiles, crafts, and the heritage that we all have been seeing around us. In last 5 years, we have seen a resurgence of crafts sector like really pulling up, especially the fashion sector. Every geographical area would have its own community which would be creating clothes. They would be weaving clothes and they would be doing that according to the landscape, to the demographics, to the geography, and hence across India you will see multiple crafts, multiple textiles that is there. And so are these artisans and weavers who are doing it. But do we really know who are these people? To talk about all this and lot more, we have with us today Judy Frater, the veteran, one of the veterans that we know in the textile and craft sector. Welcome to the show, Judy.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is a new experience for me.
We are super excited to have you on board with us here. Before I kind of begin the entire Q&A, let me kind of give idea to the viewers. For all of you who are in textile and craft, you do not need any introduction to Judy. But well, the people who are new, Judy is the founder and director of Somaiya Kala Vidya, and she is an Ashoka fellow. She has been staying in Kutch for more than 30 years now. She co-founded and operated Kala Raksha Trust, Kala Raksha Textile Museum, and founded Kala Raksha Vidyalaya, the first design school for traditional artisans. She has been awarded Ashoka Fellowship for Social Entrepreneurship in 2003, Sir Misha Black Medal for Distinguished Services to Design Education, Craft Council of India Kamala Award, and George P. Walter 36 Service to Society Award. Quite a prolific personality, isn't it? So Judy, before we kind of delve into what are you doing currently, let's go back and trace some history. When and how did you get enticed to the entire Indian textile industry, and what made you come to India?
Actually, I think when I was in 10th grade, we had to have a course in world cultures. And now that I am in the field of education, I can just see what was going on in the teacher's mind. Oh God, what am I going to do? And I know somebody who's been to India. Okay. So she had this person who had, this is how they taught world cultures, right? She had this person who had been to India come into our classroom with a trunk full of wonders. She opened the trunk and outpoured all these textiles, you know, wow. And I was hooked. I think that was, even before that, I was interested in textiles. I had a teacher in 5th grade who taught us batik, and I was doing batik and everything else since then. So wow. Yeah, I said, I saw those textiles pouring out of the trunk, and I said, one day I'm going there. And then when, I must have, you know, chatted about it with friends at college, and then there was a college program. So one of my friends said, hey, didn't you say you wanted to go to India? And, you know, that was 1970. Yeah. So I applied and I got in, and that was history, right?
So where did you come to in 1970? Where did you come, and what happened around that time? Like, what parts of India did you explore? What textiles were you mesmerized with?
I was in Pune. And my project, we each had to have a project. So my project was traditional design. So I sort of wanted to explore batik, but I probably should have been in Indonesia. So, oh well. So I worked with a goldsmith, and then we had seen a film on textiles of Gujarat and Rajasthan. So, okay, that was another thing. I think I'll go there. And I convinced some of the other students in the group to come with me, and we went to Gujarat. And when I was in Baroda, I saw a little display of embroidery on the street, and there was a sign that said, go to the Yash Kamal building. I still remember that. And I went and I met Jaidev Thakur, who was a painter, and he was just, you know, to pass time and earn a little pocket money. He was minding the store, and he told me lots of stories about Kutch, and he'd never been there. And he said, you should go to Kutch. So I convinced my colleagues that we would change our plan a bit, and we went to Kutch. And then, I went out into the villages and saw the embroidery. But more than that, I saw the embroiderers. And there was this great divide between the Rabari women in their austere black with their sort of fierce looks and their wildly colorful and
very bohemian.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. They were telling stories, but I couldn't tell what the stories were, so I needed to know more, and that was how that got started.
Wow. So I also kind of read about it that Marathi was one of the languages that you chose for your studies,
I didn't choose it. I didn't choose it because we were in Pune. We had to learn Marathi before coming.
Okay.
And so we started intensive Marathi course, and then while we were there, we studied at Deccan College and so on and so forth. So when I came back to the U.S., I thought better to do one thing well. So I continued with Marathi, and I got a master's in Marathi from the University of Minnesota.
Lovely. So weren't you attracted towards the Maharashtrian craft at that point in time, Paitanis and Kolhapuris and Varli and a lot of things happening
Actually,
around there?
textiles was my thing.
Okay.
And there wasn't much in the way of textiles. I mean, I was really interested in embroidery because it was portraying life from the point of view of the artisan in a real way. I mean, if you ask people questions, they give you the answer they want you to hear.
Right.
But these were their own stories in their own medium. So that's what I wanted to learn more about. So
Sure.
Gujarat was the place to be.
Nice. So from 70s, when you kind of came to India, and now it's 2019, and a lot has changed. A lot has changed. In all possible ways. Probably it is either a consumer education, probably a fashion designer's involvement, or an artisan being upgraded, and the entire fashion vocabulary has changed. What's your comment on it, starting from 70s till now?
Well, I mean, I would, because it's such a vast question, I would talk about it from the point of view of craft. I think craft was originally not commercial, really. And it's been commercialized. That was one thing that made me very frenetically document, because I thought this is going to be gone soon, and so what we can do is document. And I guess like many people, I thought there was deterioration going on, but then I realized that it's more an evolution. And I also realized, I guess, while I was frantically documenting, one of the characters popped off the page and said to me, "Why are you studying us? Why don't you help us?" And I suddenly saw it from her perspective, and thought, well, actually she wants to do commercial work because she wants to earn money. And I thought, well, maybe then we can look at earning without it being in conflict with an ongoing tradition. So that's when I started Kalaraksha as an alternative of commercialization. I mean, everything we can make a conscious decision about, I think. We don't always realize that, we don't always do it, but it's possible. So I thought, well, how do we enable people to earn money and still practice their craft? And that's about letting them be in charge still, and giving them the information that others, such as designers or traders, have, that enable them to reach the markets, the current markets. And I've gotten way off your question, I know, but fashion was, I don't think in 1970, I don't think fashion was such a phenomenon in India. I think traditional styles were still very much in place, And to me, fashion and tradition are different. And the idea of fashion is an idea that comes with a certain amount of disposable income, right?
But everybody wears clothes, right? So it's a part of your identity anyway.
That's different though. Fashion is something else. I mean, fashion is more, right, it's individualistic. Fashion also implies buying. You know, when somebody had traditional garments, that wasn't fashion, that was what you wore. And you had maybe 2 or 3 examples of it, you know, for different occasions, and those were set. So there wasn't any idea of buying more and looking, you know, looking here and there and changing. It did change, but it changed with respect to what was changing in lifestyle, slowly and organically. So this idea of fashion, it is connected to disposable income.
Sure.
You have to have enough money to purchase, and I don't know if you wanted to go here, but we can easily go here.
Yeah.
Sustainability. And I gave a talk today to children at Mahatma Gandhi School about sustainability and sustainable fashion. And I showed an image of a Jat man wearing an ajrak, and I said, this is the face of sustainable fashion. Why? You know, why do you think, you know, do you think he looks fashionable? And some said yes, some said no. But to me, what he's wearing is, it's expressing who he is, right? And he has no doubts about that. It's not like today where we have angst about who are we and where are we going. He is a Jat man, and that's pretty much at the end of the story, right? And so he wears ajrak. He has 2 or 3 pieces of ajrak. They are exquisite, and they're going to last a long time because they were well made. And when they're worn out, he's not going to throw them in the landfill, right?
Right.
He is going to have his wife turn them into quilts. And that's pretty sustainable.
Correct.
Plus, let's go back, I would say those are luxury items. Why? Because they're exquisitely beautiful and beautifully made.
Yeah.
And there is a depth to them of buying them from someone who you know.
Sure.
The maker and the user know each other and share their standard of evaluation, and that's a great luxury too.
Sure.
And yeah, I think buy better and buy less is really the only way we're going to really have sustainable, should we call it fashion or not?
So I think going back to the question from 70s to 2019, what I understand from your conversation is probably the consumer has become a little more aware now about the entire buying process, and so in last 2-3 years we are making more conscious choices of
Hopefully, yes.
Buying less probably, and buying with the knowledge with the knowledge that who's making it, and probably, you know, paying more attention to the craft part of it. So talking about the crafts and talking about the work that you did with the artisans, what made you start the first design college for the artisans back then? Nothing like that was probably there around.
No,
so
of course not. No.
To do that?
Well, I saw, first of all, I mean, in my studies of women embroiderers, I saw that there was a tremendous creativity and a lot of innovation. Innovation is an intrinsic part of embroidery traditions. I mean, people seem to have an idea that tradition is something hard and fast, like cut in stone, but it's not at all. And it has to innovate. I mean, women have to express their individual personalities within their tradition. That's always been a part of it. So fortunately, that was my first real deep understanding of traditional craft. And but then when we started Kala Raksha, we thought, well, you know, because we're working for contemporary markets, we have to have some design in it. And we would call students of design schools, and they would come with preconceived ideas for the most part and try to force them on the artisans and us. And sometimes, you know, sometimes we thought they were a good idea, but a lot of times the artisans, when the student wasn't looking, would roll their eyes and say, And I thought, well, it is their work, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
why are we forcing them to do something that they don't appreciate? And, and the quality of the work shows that too. When someone enjoys what they're doing, they do beautiful work. It's very simple. So I thought, I think these artisans can learn design faster than young designers can learn about a tradition.
Sure.
Because a tradition takes a lifetime or two to really know. It's not just skills. Tradition is much more than skills.
Absolutely.
So then I thought, well, I kept on saying, they should have a design school for artisans. And then when we had an earthquake, and someone asked me what I wanted to have come out of the earthquake, I said, a design school for artisans. And then I had to do it.
So while you started the design school and kind of getting the artisans to come and learn and educate themselves, did you face some challenges? Because men, women, both are the people who are involved into the craft work. Any cultural resistance, any gender issues that you kind of faced during this, and how did you tackle them?
See, I think there's a real misconception that artisans don't like to change. Of course they like to change, they always did, but it depends on how it's presented to them. If someone, a designer for example, comes with a preconceived idea and says, here, do this, if you were a creative person, how would you respond? Right? But if someone comes to you with a problem and says, I want something that's a little jazzy for a holiday, or make something for me for my birthday, then it's a fun exercise, right? So it has to be presented in that way so that the creative person has a chance to apply his or her creativity. So I think that's the real resistance is actually from others. Who want to see artisans kept in their place, who want to talk about helping them, who want to see them only as hands working with no head, who can't see what's in front of them. I think that's where the resistance really is.
Who would that be? The designer community? What would that be?
The consumers, maybe even, all right. For some reason, when people see the artisan standing there, they want to bargain, right?
Okay.
Right? They think, I'm going to get a deal.
Value for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You've hit it right on the head. It's about value. Yeah.
Right.
But if you see it in a store with a spotlight and a label, then you're not going to think about bargaining, especially if it's a label you know and like, right?
Sure.
So that's the biggest hurdle, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome through the design education the artisans that kind of get trained and they get trained into design aspect, the marketing aspect, the entrepreneurial aspect? What builds up the confidence for them to kind of present their product out?
Well, see, first, I don't like to call it training, because training to me implies that you have a preconceived goal and you want someone to do it.
But it's a design curriculum,
but it's
right?
education, right? So education is open-ended,
right.
And what we try to do is the same way any design education course does. We try to present them with information and let them take it where they want to take it. So confidence comes automatically. I think confidence is a byproduct of education. When you feel you know something, that's very empowering. I think that's probably one of the most empowering things. And you feel you're capable of doing it. Like, when you succeed at something, nothing like that, right? So we give them homework after each course, and the local faculty goes to make sure that they're able to implement what they've learned. And, as they do something beyond what they've already done and they succeed, wow. I mean, that's pretty confidence building.
Interesting. Also holding exhibitions, traveling, getting more exposure would be adding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and presentation. I mean, after the first time when they present, I remember one girl, she fainted. She stood up, she fainted, fell on the ground because she was so scared. I'm presenting even just for her classmates and a few alumni, right? And her friends picked her up, she stood up and she kept on going. And last year she gave a speech in front of the whole convocation, you know. So yeah, another guy I remember, he stood up and then he sat down and he went like this. He said, I could get somebody else to do it. But you know, slowly they practice, and that gives them a lot of confidence too.
Great, great. So from the confidence part, I realized you did these 2 projects. One was Bujodi to Bagalkot, and the other one was Faradi to Lucknow. What were this? You know, the artisans collaborating with others?
This is an outreach project. It sort of evolved kind of organically. I was asked to go to Bagalkot. I didn't even know where Bagalkot was. It's in North Karnataka. And because they wanted to develop Bagalkot into a model district. And I said, why are you asking me? And they said, because there's craft. And I said, what craft? And they said, weaving. So I said, let me bring a weaver. So one of our graduates came with me, and we went and we met weavers. And you know, they were, talk about resistant to change. Those poor guys, all they had ever done was just execute work of other people. They were just like human machines. And when my colleague said, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? Every time they said, no, we don't do that. No, no. And then he looked at me and he said, what's wrong with these people? And I said, I don't know. What should we do? He said, let's bring them to Kutch. So I said, wow, what an idea. Of course, let's do that. So we brought them to Kutch, and they saw that what was going on in Kutch, and they said, you know, they would like to try something. So we developed a program where the graduates of our program go and pair up, partner with these artisans in less exposed regions, and then quickly co-design a collection to get to a market. They've never seen that market, you know, they've been in their little hole. And when they see that market, it's like, wow. And when they see, you have to build in success. When they see their work selling, it's like, blows them away. Absolutely. And then is the right time to say, would you like to learn design? They say, sure, I mean, why not? And then, because you have to be ready. If you don't see the utility of something, and I wanted to say this also about our program. You know, one reason I was in the museum field earlier, and one reason was that it's education with volunteer students. They're not forced. They come voluntarily and they enjoy. So nobody's forced to come to our program. They come because they want to, and that makes a huge difference in receptivity, of course. They're there, they know what they want to learn and why. And so it's a joy to teach them. And so I think in the Bujodi to Bagalkot program, we had a great success. We had setbacks. You know, it would go forward and back and forward and back. At one point, we were teaching color, and one of the weavers said, "Stop with all this theory. We're weavers. We want to learn dyeing." And I said, well, suppose you learn dyeing. We fortunately had an experience of that, and you didn't know the right colors to dye it. Then what? You know, and I pointed to this pile of unused yarns, and he said, okay, got it. So then he could see the context. So that was a very successful project. Just now we had an exhibition in Hyderabad where they sold out their new collection. It took years for us to get them to want to do their traditional, the essential part of the ilkal sari is kondi, where you join the warps of silk and cotton, and they didn't want to do it anymore, and we convinced them that that was saleable, and now they get that. With Faradi to Lucknow, that was with chicken work. I mean, there was a lot of resistance there, not from the artisans, but from the community. They were really concerned that we might either teach the chicken embroiderers to do Kutch work or vice versa, and that's not what we do at all. We teach people to innovate within their tradition, to go back to it and appreciate it and then work within it. And but the problem there was that we didn't have traction. Working with women has a lot of issues. Women in India, and I think elsewhere too, have very many social constraints. their family prevents them from going out. They have other real work that they have to do. They have to maintain their family. That's the first, and it will always be the first priority, right? So we didn't have, we had those challenges. The young women that we worked with were eager, but one mother was completely overwhelming and kept on taking over, so that was very difficult. And I think the main thing also, we didn't have an organization or a group on the ground to take things forward. We don't want to work remote control. That's not possible. How much can you do? But we want to be catalysts for getting something going somewhere else. We can guide, but someone else has to take it forward. So we didn't have that there. And then the third place that we worked was in Kumau with Avni. Yeah, and that had some challenges too, but the women there did really wonderful designs and they sold well. But this year we weren't able to take it forward, so I hope next year we would be able to. And we're always looking for new places now.
Absolutely. I think that's very interesting because the community gets really motivated if the community, peer community in the other places like really gives them the exposure. So would you like to share one or two stories of the students of
these current students? Yes, I'd love to.
Yeah.
This has been a really wonderful class. They're really well balanced, and
it's like a principal telling, right?
Yeah. I really,
the 19 and 20 is like so good.
Yeah. This was a really good class. So I'll show you just a few examples.
Sure.
And what I also want to show mainly here is that even though the point of what we do is, even though we have traditions, the individuals innovate within that tradition so that it diversifies, and actually then the market expands to accommodate it. So, you know, with the same beginning, different perspectives can take it in different directions and still it maintains its identity. So here is Bandhani from Imran Bai, and his theme was God's gift, which is nature. And so he's looking at flowers. In his theme board, he made a blanket of flowers for his theme board. It was beautiful. And so here is a piece that he did, God's gift. Okay. Yeah. His colors are very vibrant, not fearful at all of color.
Absolutely.
And then Hamza.
It's like the Valley of Flower.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Hamza did. His theme was Rajani Maja, fun of vacation, and this may not exactly evoke his theme, but it's a fantastic piece, very finely. No, it's a bandhani.
Bandhani, right?
Yeah,
right.
And subtle colors, and also clamp dyeing along with bandhani.
Lovely.
And then now in Ajrak printing, we had. This isn't all of them. I'm only doing half, because I know we have limited time. Jabbar Bai, who had been a job worker. He was just printing yardage for years. And all he wanted to do was make products. He wanted to compose, because he was just doing yardage with no beginning and no end, and he wanted to compose.
Create something.
So here, and all this is natural dye. He did this, not the usual Ajrak colors of red and black and white and blue, but he did these really beautiful, vibrant colors in Ajrak, and his theme, his fashion forecast theme was larger than life, and he is a large person, and so he called it Dazzling Star, because larger than life to him was the sky.
Lovely.
Okay, and then Tosif, who is also an Ajrak printer, he chose for his theme Ajwa, which is the king of dates. And he has date palms outside of his studio. So he looked at the date palms, not just the leaves, but have you seen date trees that have that like almost like a woven texture
Yes.
on the bark, right?
Yes,
So
on the
he did
bark.
that on this, and it was really beautiful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love how the colors also have been kind of really used.
Yeah, and they're all natural dyes.
Yeah.
Then in weaving, Nitin, who's very young, he struggled with how to understand a concept. And all he kept saying is, I'm a peaceful man. I like weaving because it's peaceful. And so finally he did his theme on peace, peace and coolness, and
kind of
yeah,
resonated
and
with
he
that.
when he drank it, and he really enjoyed the way and you know, in Kutch traditionally the weavers did not even use colored yarns; they used the natural black and white wool.
Sure.
So here he's playing with color, and I think it's really gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
He also used silk for the first time. And then Bharat Bhai is 36. He's not a young student. He's been weaving for a long time, but he had never woven a sari. And he was not going to weave saris. And we said, we think you should weave saris. Try. So this was the first sari he ever wove. And his theme is Lord of the Forest. He was very fascinated with the textures of trees. And here.
Nice.
This is the pallu. Yeah.
So stunning.
Yeah. The way his colors work together. And texture, he was very interested in texture. He did ikat, and he did this extra weft pattern texture.
Lovely.
So that is just half of them. We did, you know, each of them did wonderful. And you know, you see the same weaving tradition, but very differently interpreted.
Absolutely.
And the idea, I mean, maybe I'm going to get away from what I said earlier about sustainable fashion, because we do want our students to sell.
No, but so how does kind of just about to wind up the conversation and give the viewers a little idea about how should a consumer who is really interested into supporting crafts and textiles and yet be sustainable go about this entire buying business?
Well, I think you have to know quality and value it. I mean, I always ask people these days, what is it in your closet that's never going to a landfill? Sure. Like your sari, for example. I bet it won't. I hope it won't.
No, it won't.
Right? Because you value it, right? Those things that you value, you will keep and you will preserve and you will extend the life of. And I think when you buy craft, you should buy it. You know, people sometimes say craft is nice, but it's expensive. Well, it's a relative term, right? Yeah. Expensive compared to what? If you have 1,000 rupee budget, you can buy 10 100, watch the math, sorry, but 10 100 rupee pieces or 2 500 rupee pieces, right?
Sure.
So which is better? And I asked the students that this morning, and one girl said the 10 at 100, of course, and then she thought about it, you know. So, you know, buy something more valuable and treasure it and appreciate it when you use it. Right? I think. And what I was going to say a minute ago is that, you know, even though it's the same tradition, it's so different that, you know, it wouldn't be like, well, I'll buy this and so I won't buy that, because they're very different.
They're very different.
And that's the idea of diversification. You can still tell they're all from Kutch.
Right.
Right?
Still they're very, very different.
Right. And
yeah.
you know, I have 2 different outfits. The one, that orange one is perfect with, and one the black and blue one is perfect with.
Absolutely. So great. It's such a pleasure speaking to you, Judy. And guys, Judy Frater, along with the students, the graduates rather, of Somaiya Kala Vidya, are exhibiting their beautiful, beautiful collection at the Bougainvillea Gallery, hosted by Ishita. And it's a fantastic collection. You have to come to see the collection and believe it, how the weavers and the artisans have kind of really thought through about the collection and presented it. If you have any more questions, please put in the comment section. Judy would love to answer them.
Sure.
And if you really like this episode, do like, share and subscribe. We'll be back again next week with more discussions on changing fashionscape in India. Thank you.
Thank you.